This is Nick with logosbynick.com, and in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to create this simple shield logo using Inkscape. And at any point in this tutorial you could look down at the bottom left hand side of my screen to see which mouse clicks and keystrokes I'm using. So I'll minimize this and we'll get started here in Inkscape. And by the way, if you'd like to make Inkscape appear like I have here on my screen, the link to that information will be in the description of the video. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure the view is set to custom, and then we're going to zoom in at 1:1. And then I'm going to open up the Align and Distribute menu, and we're going to want Last Selected chosen from this drop-down. And then we'll open up the Fill and Stroke dialog with that button right there. And the first thing I'm going to do is grab the Bezier Pen and draw a shape. So the Bezier Pen's over here. Another way to grab it is to just press B on the keyboard. And I'm going to start this down here, and I'm going to click, and then hold Control and bring this line straight up about that much. And then click again. And then still holding Control, I'll bring this line out to about here, and then click, and then let go of Control and connect it back to the starting point. The first thing I'm doing is drawing the shape of the shield. If you look here in the background, the shape of the shield, that's the thing I'm doing right here. So once we've drawn this shape, let's go to the Edit Paths by Nodes tool, and I'm going to grab this line and just pull that out, maybe like that. About that much, that's pretty good. And then I'm going to go back to the Select tool, and I'm going to turn this red. I'm going to get rid of that black outline by holding Shift and clicking on the X. And I'll take the opacity of this and bring this down about in half. And then I'll right-click that, go to Duplicate. I'll turn the duplicated copy blue, and then I'll flip it horizontally with this button up here, Flip Selected Objects Horizontally, just like that. And I'm going to click and drag over both of those so I have them both selected. And I'm going to come down to the Align panel and click this button that says Align Right Edges of Objects to the left edge of the anchor. Just like that. And what I'm going to do is unify them together into one shape by going to Path, Union. So the next thing I'm going to do now is give the top of this shield shape a rounded edge, because as it stands right now it's currently flat. And as you see here, I have it rounded right there. The best way to do this is to grab the Circles and Ellipses tool and just click and drag over it and create a big ellipse going over it. Maybe about that much. Let me go back to the Select tool, and I'm going to put this right about here. You want to make sure the height of the ellipse is going past the end of the shield right there. And let me bring the edges in a little bit. See how that looks. Maybe a little more. And I'll put it right about there. That's pretty good. And once you have it positioned how you like it, just hold Shift and click on the red shape so you have them both selected. And then we'll center that on the vertical axis. And then go to Path, Intersection. So there we have the basis of our shape right here. Now let me hold Control and Shift and scale this down a little bit. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to right click this and go to Duplicate. I'll turn that duplicated copy blue, and I'll send that to the bottom, lower selection to the bottom, so it goes beneath the red shape. And I'll hold Shift and click on the color blue to give that a blue outline. And you can't see it because it's a very small outline, but it put a blue outline around the edge of it. So that now has a blue outline. We'll go to the Stroke Style tab. We'll make that line bigger. I'm going to try maybe a 20 point stroke. No, maybe a little bigger than that, 25. That's pretty good. I'll finalize that by going to Path, Stroke to Path, Path, Break Apart, Path, Union. And now I'm going to duplicate that. I'll just go to Edit, Duplicate, and I'll turn that green, and I'll give that a green outline as well. I'm going to hold Shift and click on the color green, lower selection to the bottom so it goes beneath that. And again, we'll go to Path, Stroke to Path, Path, Break Apart, Path, Union. And we're going to do that one more time. So let's go to Edit, Duplicate, and this one, I'll make this one red again. Click red, and then hold Shift and click the color red again to give that another red outline. We'll send that to the bottom. Path, Stroke to Path, Path, Break Apart, Path, Union. Oh, you know what? I ran into a glitch there. You know what? If that happens to you, what you could do is you can go to Path, Break Apart. What you could do is you zoom in. You could press plus on the keyboard to zoom in, and hold Shift and click on the larger red shape right there to deselect it, and just the shape in the middle there will be selected, and you can just press delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. And let me press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out, And the next thing would be to create a couple of little stripes going right here on the side. If you see here, if you notice, there's a couple of stripes. Oops. There's a couple of stripes going along the edge of the shield there. And in order to do that, I'm going to click this red shape. I'll right click that and go to duplicate. I'll turn that black and I'll duplicate it again and turn the duplicated copy green. And then I'm going to turn on the Snap to Cusp Nodes option up here. This little icon that says Snap to Cusp Nodes. I'm going to turn that on. And then I'll click on this a second time to get the rotation handles. And once we've done that, we'll have this little crosshair in the middle. I'm going to take this crosshair and snap it right to the bottom corner right there. And once I've done that, I can take this top right arrow in the top right corner and just rotate it around about that much. That's pretty good right there. And then I'll hold Shift and I'll click on the black shape beneath it so we have them both selected and go to Path Difference. And there's our stripe right there, but the only thing is there's a little piece that got included right there. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to Path, Break Apart, and that broke that apart into two pieces. And then I could deselect this piece by holding Shift and clicking on it, and just that will be selected. And then we just press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. And we could just take this object, right click that, go to Duplicate. We can flip this horizontally and snap this right corner into this top right corner right there like that. Then we could turn off the Snap to Cusp Nodes. We're done with that for now. And let's take this red shape in the middle and just press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. And I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. I'll just press plus on the keyboard a couple of times. I'll click on this blue shape, hold Shift, click on this green shape so we have them both selected, and go to Path Difference. And then I'll hold Shift and click on this shape and then that shape so we have those three selected, and go to Path Union. And then hold Shift and click on the red shape and go to Path Difference. Now I'm going to press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out to 100%. And you can see we now have our shield shape like you see here in the background. And the next step is to create this ribbon that says shield on it. And okay, so now we're going to do that. Let's put this off to the side over here. I'm going to create some text. Let's go to the text tool. Click on the canvas, and I'm just going to use all caps. I'm just going to write shield for the sake of this tutorial, and I'll go to the text editor. And the font I'm going to use is called League Gothic. I'll include a link to that in the description if you'd like to download and install that font. Close out of that. Go back to the Select tool. Let me take the opacity of this down as well. And I'm going to put this over the shield right here. And I'm just going to hold Control and Shift and scale this up just to give myself an idea of how big I want this to be. I'd say it's a pretty good size right there. So I'll leave that there. And what I'm going to do now is create another oval. So let's come over to the Circles and Ellipses tool and create another oval or ellipse going over that word shield. Let me get rid of that red outline. I'll just hold Shift and click on the X. Go back to the Select tool. I'll put this right about there. Actually, I'm going to lower this one step, lower selection one step below the word shield. And then I'll hold Shift and click on the word shield. And I'm going to center it on the vertical axis and align the top edges. And then click off of it to deselect. So what I'll do now is I'll click on this green ellipse. And I'll right click that and go to Duplicate. I'll turn that red. And then I'll hold Control on the keyboard and click and drag this down to the bottom of the word shield, but down a little further. Maybe about that much. That's pretty good. And then we can hold Shift, click on the green ellipse behind it, go to Path Difference, and then I'm going to create a rectangle. So let's come over to the Squares and Rectangles tool, and I'm just going to click and drag and create a rectangle going over this thing right here. Maybe about that much. Go back to the Select tool, maybe a little narrower. That's pretty good. Maybe about that size. And then I'll hold Shift and click on the green object, and I'm just going to make sure it's centered on the vertical axis, which it looks like it is. And then I'm going to click this green shape, and I'll right click that and go to Duplicate, and hold Shift and click on the red square and go to Path Intersection. So we now have our main shape right here. I'm just going to hold Control and slide this up a little bit, maybe about that much. And then I'm going to grab the Rectangles and Squares tool. I'll click and drag over this shape right here. I'll turn that green. I'm going to make another rectangle, but it's going to be a little smaller. Let me go back to the Select tool, hold Shift, click on the red shape, and center it on the vertical axis. click off of it to deselect. And again, I'll click on this shape. I'll right click that and go to duplicate, and then hold shift and click on this green square and go to path, intersection. And then I'll hold control and just move this up a little bit as well. And I can take this green shape now. We can just get rid of that. Press delete on the keyboard. And okay, we have that as it is. And one last step would be to create another rectangle. This one being even smaller, going in about that much. And let me just turn that blue so you can see what I'm doing here. There's the blue rectangle. I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller, not too much. And I'll hold shift, click on the red shape, and center it on the vertical axis. And go to path, difference. Then we can press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. And let's grab this word shield right here. You'll have to alt click it, so hold alt and click on it, and then you'll have it. And we're going to raise that to the top, raise selection to the top. And let's zoom in on that. I'm going to press plus a few times to zoom in. And I'm going to hold shift and click on the green shape, and I'm just going to make sure it's centered on the horizontal axis. Click off of it to deselect. And then I'm going to take this green object, and I'm going to right click that and go to duplicate. And I'll turn that blue, and I'll hold control on the keyboard and click and drag this down until the top of the arc is touching the top of the letters. And then I'll right click that shape and go to duplicate. I'll turn that green, and I'll hold control, and I'll click and drag this down until this arch, the top of this arch is touching the bottom of the word shield, just like that. And then I'll hold shift and click on the blue shape and go to path, difference. Now let's take the word shield and bring this out of the way for now. We could take this blue object, hold shift, click on the green object, and center it on the horizontal axis. And then we could press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. So what we're going to do now is let's take this word shield and let's raise that to the top and hold shift on the keyboard and click on that blue shape and center it on the vertical and horizontal axis, and then click off of it to deselect everything. What we're going to do now is zoom in on this a few times, zoom in on this a little bit. We're going to create more rectangles. So let's go to the rectangles tool and let's click and drag and create a rectangle going over the letter S, like that. And let me just make this a different color so you can see it. I'll make this just yellow for now. And I'll go to the select tool, and I'm going to, let me zoom in a little more, I'm going to take the edges of this and just make sure that the left edge is touching the left edge of the S and the right edge is touching the right edge of the S, like that. And you want to make sure the height of this rectangle is taller than this blue shape right here. And we're going to create these rectangles going over each letter. So let me click on this, right click that and go to duplicate, and I'll hold control and click and drag this over to the right to the letter H. Let me zoom back in. And I'll just adjust the size so it matches the width of the H. And again, I'm going to duplicate this. Instead of right-clicking and going to duplicate, you can just press Control-D. And then I'll hold Control, bring this over here, size this up to the same width as the I, Control-D to duplicate, hold Control, click and drag this over here, make the width of this the same as the E. And if you want to move your page around, you can press down on the mouse wheel and move the mouse, and that'll let you pan the page around. Or if you're using Inkscape 91, you can press down the space bar, and it'll let you move the page around like that too. So let me hit Control-D to duplicate that again. I'll hold Control and bring this over here to the right. Make sure that's the same size, the same width. And again, Control-D. I'll put this over here in the letter D. Make sure this is the same width. And that's pretty good. We can press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. And let's hold shift and click on each one of those yellow rectangles we just created. And we're going to unify them all together by going to Path, Union. And then we'll hold shift and click on the blue object and go to Path, Intersection. Now let me zoom in on this again. Let me take the word shield and move this out of the way. These little boxes right here are what we're going to use to make the letters take the shape of, so that the word looks like it's going in an arch along with the shape of the ribbon. So in order to accomplish that, we're going to grab the Bezier pen. We just press B on the keyboard, and we're going to turn on the Snap to Custom Nodes again, and we're going to create shapes going around each of these blue boxes, and we're going to use the envelope tool to shape each letter. So in order for the envelope tool to work the way we need it to work, it's important that we start the shape in the top left corner and create it going clockwise. So if you just follow what I'm doing here, you should be all right. So I'm going to start it in the top left corner and click, snap to this corner, click, and then to this corner, and then this corner, and then to that corner. And we're going to do this to the rest of those blue boxes. Top left going clockwise all around, back to the starting point, and I'm going to do this to the rest of these boxes. I'm pretty sure you get the idea by now. Bring that around. Same thing over here. And then finally we can do that to this box as well. Okay, so now we could turn off the snap to cusp nodes. We're done with that. And let's go back to the select tool. And we'll take this blue object right here, and we're just going to delete that. We're done with that. And we're now going to take each one of these letters and use the envelope extension to make each letter fit into that box. So before we do that, we have to change this from a text object to a path. So we'll go to Path, Object to Path, and then we'll ungroup it. And you'll see we have individual letters here. So let's click off of that to deselect everything. Let's click on the letter first, and then hold Shift and click on the shape and go to Extension, Modify Path, Envelope. And it took the letter S and put it into the shape of that box. So we're going to do the same thing to the rest of these letters. Click on the letter, then hold Shift, click on the box, go to Extension, Modify Path, Envelope. And again, we'll click this, hold Shift, click on the shape, Extension, Modify Path, Envelope. And we only got 3 more to go. So let's go to Extension, Modify Path, Envelope. Click the letter, hold Shift, click the shape, Extension, Modify Path, Envelope. And one more time, click the shape, hold Shift, click the object, Extension, Modify Path, Envelope. And there we go. We now have the letters taking the shape of the ribbon like that. So let's go and take these little boxes that we drew and just delete those. We don't need those anymore. And what we can do now is I'm going to put little shapes on these edges right here just to show you here. If you look at the inside edge of the ribbon right here, you notice these little shapes to almost look like it's casting a shadow. That's what we're going to create right now. So actually I should have left the snap to cusp nodes on. I'm going to need that again. Snap to cusp nodes, we'll turn that back on. I'm going to press B to get the Bezier pen, and I'm going to start the shape at this bottom corner right here and click that. Hold Control, bring this up to about there, click, and we can let go of Control, snap it to that corner, and then back to the starting point. Oops. And then I'm going to go to the Select tool, I'll right click that and go to Duplicate, and I'll flip that horizontally and just put this shape over here on this side since it should be symmetrical. And we'll go back to the Select tool, we'll go back to the Bezier pen, press B on the keyboard, start this shape at this corner, bring it up to there, and then bring this shape out to about here, then click, and then snap to this corner and click, and then back to the starting point. And then we go to the Select tool, we can right click that, go to Duplicate, flip that horizontally, and take this and snap this over here to this corner like that. And then we could hold Shift and click on that shape, so we have both of these two shapes right here selected. We're going to unify them together by going to Path, Union. Then we'll take these red objects right here, right click that, go to Duplicate, hold Shift, click on the shapes that we just drew, and go to Path, Intersection. And we could turn that blue. We can get rid of the outline by holding Shift and clicking the X. We bring the opacity down a little bit. And we're going to do the same thing right here. Let's click on this shape, and then hold Shift and click on this shape. Unify them together by going to Path, Union. We'll make them blue. We'll get rid of the outline by holding Shift and clicking on the X. Bring the opacity down a little bit. And we're going to get rid of the tops of these shapes by taking the green shape. And we'll right click that and go to Duplicate. Hold Shift, click on the blue shapes, and go to Path, Difference. And then we could press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. So we now have our ribbon here. So let's take this all right here, and I think we're done with the snap to cusp nodes. We could turn that off. Let's group this all together, and let's put this over the shield right here like that. And I'm just going to hold Control and Shift and scale this up just to make sure it's a size that I like. Scale it up like that. Once you have it set at a proportion that you like, you can just hold Shift and click on the shield and center it on the vertical axis, and then click off of it to deselect everything. So let's take this shield ribbon right here, the ribbon that we just created, and let's right click that and go to Duplicate. And we'll ungroup it, and we'll go to Path, Union, and we'll turn it blue and lower it 1 step beneath this object right here. And we're going to give that a blue outline by holding Shift and clicking on the color blue. And it should give you a 25-point stroke, or whatever stroke you used for the shield when you were creating it. And that's a pretty good size. I'm going to leave that just how it is. If you'd like to change it, you can come over to the Stroke Style tab and change the size to whichever you'd like. But I'm going to leave that how it is. I like how that looks. And we'll go to Path, Stroke to Path, Path, Break Apart, Path, Union. And I'm actually going to click and drag over the whole thing and Control and Shift and scale it in a little bit. I don't like how it's that big. I'd say that's pretty good right there. Click off it to deselect. So let's take this blue shape and then hold Shift and click on the red shield. And with them both selected, go to Path, Union. And that combined them all together like that. And our final step here is to take our little ribbon right here, and we'll ungroup that. Click off of it to deselect. I'll press plus a few times to zoom in. And I'm going to click the green shape, hold Shift, click these red shapes over here, and go to Path, Union. And then I'll click these two blue objects, and hold Shift and click these two blue objects. And with them both selected, we'll unify them together by going to Path, Union, and then hold Shift and click on the ribbon, and go to Path, Difference. And then hold Shift and click on the shield and go to Path, Difference. And then we can take the color, you can take the shield word and make that whatever color you'd like. I'll just make it all one color like that. Press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. Click and drag over the whole thing, bring the opacity up. I'm going to make this just black for now, like that. And one final step would be to put a little star up there. So we'll come over to the Stars and Polygons tool. We're going to choose stars. We want 5 corners, spoke ratio 0.375, and rounded and randomized both set to 0. And then I'll just hold Control and Shift and click and drag to create the star. Let me get rid of that blue outline. I'll just hold Shift and click on the X. I'll go back to the Select tool, click on this a second time to get the rotation handles, and just rotate this around until it's sitting upright like that. That's pretty good. And I'll just put this over here. I'll click it again to get back to the scaling handles, and I'll just hold Control and Shift and scale it in like that. And I'll turn that white so I can see it. I'll put that right there. Hold Shift, click on the shape, make sure it's centered on the vertical axis. Then we can go to Path, Difference. And that's pretty much it. That's how we can create our very simple shield logo using Inkscape. So if you have any questions, let me know. And as always, thank you for watching.